Okay, I'll bite. I've got a story. Hey NFI, happy unexpected Saturday the 26th. By unexpected, I mean unexpected I'm here, not unexpected that the 26th of September has happened, because, you know, kinda happens every year. So this week we are apparently talking about small worlds, or rather the concept of a small world in relation to you. So here's my story, loosely based on something I read in the description for the theme in this week, which said miniature railways. Railways got me thinking about something that happened earlier this week. So a few days ago, I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, as I so often do when I've got better stuff to do, but I am procrastinating as usual. And this tweet in particular was a retweet from someone else who I don't know about a show called Tugs. Now, Tugs, for anyone who doesn't know, is a kids show from, I would guess, the 80s, maybe 90s, I'm not quite sure, but it was made using models. I think it's probably just better to show you.
The tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat. And the star tugs are the power behind the docks and waterways that make up the big city port. This is Tugs.
Now, I remember growing up, we had this on VHS, the entire series as it happens, and I used to watch it. It was one of my first early binges. I don't remember a lot about the show. I didn't really remember the show in like full episodes. All I can remember in my mind is images of watching it, apart from there's one episode called Ghosts. In the episode, the somehow sentient tugs come across what they describe as ghost tugs. The setup for the episode is basically there's a lot of fog in and around the place they work, in the waterways, and in this fog there appears white, faceless boats. It doesn't sound too bad. It was a kids show, so it shouldn't be that intimidating, but trust me, to 6-year-old me, this was terrifying. But it wasn't the ghost tugs itself, it was the ambience of the show, and it was the evil demonic faces on the tugs that we're supposed to like. Not the ghost tugs, but the actual tug characters. Just look at those faces of those tugs when they are terrified. I am then terrified by that haunting image that was burned into my brain for several years. What's this got to do with Small World? I went onto YouTube to watch this episode Ghosts because someone's uploaded it, because of course they have. Watched it all the way through. And from an adult's perspective, I can understand why I was terrified, but then it's what came next that makes this a small world. Right now you're watching a YouTube video, so you tend to know how the YouTube system works, that once one video is finished, unless you turn that feature off, then plays automatically the next video it thinks you should be watching. The video that followed the Tugs episode of Ghosts was from a guy called Brannon Carty, a fan of Thomas the Tank Engine. You can see why these would link in, because Thomas the Tank Engine was made in a similar way to Tugs using models. In the video, Brandon was giving an update to his Kickstarter project because he was trying to fund a fan documentary into looking at Thomas the Tank Engine and the fandom. The whole project is called An Unlikely Fandom. Now, having no interest in Thomas the Tank Engine, you'd think I wouldn't be interested, but I watched the update video through and it got me interested, because as a community manager, I like to understand people and different communities on the platform and the wider world. And because it's a project that directly looks into a fandom and the people behind it and the stories behind it and the different reasons for people getting involved in the fandom, colour me interest. Unsurprisingly, COVID has put a bit of a halt to the production, because he'd filmed bits of it, but he wanted to come to the UK and film some bits over here. So I found the guy on Twitter and sent him a message basically just saying how interesting his project looks, and from my point of view and how I study things and how I get to know different communities, I find the idea fascinating. So we got into a bit of a conversation about the project, and he sort of explored ways how I might be able to help him with certain things. And then we got talking about the York Train Museum. In the English town of York, there is a large train museum, and they house all sorts of units, engines, paraphernalia, history, all sorts of stuff from the UK rail scene and beyond. It's a really interesting place for people, so I recommended he go and check the York Museum out if ever he comes over here. To which he replied that he's actually already planning on coming to have a look at the York Museum, although COVID has kind of put a bit of a kibosh on that for now. And he expanded on the point that he wanted to involve more British rail stuff in his actual documentary. So I said, hang on, I think I may know of someone who could help you. There is a YouTuber by the name of Jeff Marshall, who is a UK-based trains and train infrastructure YouTuber who focuses on not just trains and units, but things like infrastructure, the updates around the railways. So I reached out to Jeff on Twitter asking if I could send him a message about the project. He got back to me saying yes, and so now I've messaged Jeff and started a dialogue with Jeff as well as Brandon Carty. So after throwing all that exposition at you, how does this relate to Small World? Well, as Brendan pointed out in his video yesterday, there is a concept called 6 degrees of separation. This is the idea that all people are 6 social connections or less away from other people. So you could take one person who is then related to someone, who is friends with someone, who knows someone, who worked with someone, who once went to dinner with someone, who knows the other person. While some links are very questionable and quite tentative, the whole idea seems to work. While the scenario I am talking about is not quite the same thing as 6 degrees of separation between people, but more between situations. 1. I read a tweet that reminded me about something nostalgic. 2. I went on YouTube to watch that nostalgic thing back to see if it was quite as terrifying as I remember it being. Answer, yes. 3. That led me onto a video explaining a very interesting YouTube project. 4. Which led me on to talking to the owner of that YouTube project on Twitter, which then led me to suggest Jeff Marshall, which is point 5. Point 6 brings me back to me sitting here talking about trains. I think. It's just another situation where something from my past has come back to me today to create some sort of new opportunity for me on YouTube and on the platform to be able to get involved with something new. Before I started explaining this, in my head it sounded like a Small World thing, but now I've explained it more, I'm not entirely sure. So that is my sort of Small World, sort of not Small World story. Thank you very much for watching. I will probably see me next week because language is a topic, no one else has signed up, so I might do something for that. If not, Fireword Sparkler, we will see you a week on Tuesday for local wildlife. Oh, right, and have a nice day.